before meal kits, before DoorDash, before the microwave even existed. There was a cast iron skillet, 1 pound of ground beef, and a mother who could feed 6 people before Dad walked through the door. We are talking 15 minutes, start to finish. Real food, real flavor. And it cost less than the tip you leave your delivery driver today. I have dug through 50 years of church cookbooks, Depression-era pamphlets, and handwritten recipe cards. And what I found will genuinely shock you. 30 dinners, almost completely forgotten. And some of them are so good, food scientists are now studying why they taste so incredible. Number 3 on this list uses a trick that creates a flavor reaction your tongue literally cannot get from any modern shortcut. So when number 14 was on every church potluck table in 1962 and has completely vanished from American kitchens. Stay with me, because by the end of this, your grocery bill might never look the same again. Let's count them down. Entries 30 to 26. Number 30, hamburger gravy on toast. Every Depression-era mother knew this one, and it survived all the way into the 1960s under the nickname SOS. Here's how it worked. Brown 1/2 pound of ground beef in a skillet. Sprinkle 2 tablespoons of flour right over the sizzling meat and stir. Pour in 1.5 cups of milk. In under 8 minutes, that pan became a thick, creamy, peppery gravy that clung to a spoon. Ladled over 2 slices of toasted Wonder Bread, it fed a grown man for a quarter. The secret was white pepper, not black. The gravy stayed pale, clean, and beautiful. Cheap, hot, filling, and on the table before the evening news came on. Number 29. Skillet goulash, not the Hungarian kind. American goulash showed up in church cookbooks across Ohio and Pennsylvania in the 1950s, and it came together in one pan in 15 minutes flat. Brown 1 pound of ground beef with a chopped onion. Dump in a can of tomato sauce, a can of diced tomatoes, and 2 cups of leftover elbow macaroni. Add a shake of garlic salt, a pinch of sugar to cut the acid, and you were done. Kids lined up for seconds. 1 pound of beef, a can of tomatoes, and 15 cents of macaroni fed a family of 5 for under $1. It vanished the day Chef Boyardee hit the shelves. A corporation convinced America the can was easier than a 15-minute pan. It was not. For number 28, homemade Sloppy Joes. Before a certain brand convinced America in 1969 that Sloppy Joes came from a can, every grandmother made them from scratch in about 11 minutes. Brown 1 pound of ground beef. Drain the fat. Stir in 1/2 cup of ketchup, a tablespoon of yellow mustard, a tablespoon of brown sugar, and a splash of Worcestershire. That was it. Pile it on soft hamburger buns and watch it drip down your kids' wrists. That famous brand spent millions telling mothers the homemade version was too much work. It was literally 4 ingredients and 1 pan. We forgot because a food company wanted us to. Number 27, hamburger stroganoff. In 1952, Betty Crocker published a version that became a Tuesday night standard in half the homes in America. Brown 1 pound of ground beef with a sliced onion, and stir in a can of Campbell's cream of mushroom soup, 1/2 cup of sour cream, and a spoonful of ketchup for color. Pour it over egg noodles. It tasted like something out of a steakhouse. The secret was adding the sour cream off the heat so it would not curdle. A nickel's worth of noodles, a 30-cent can of soup, and humble ground beef turned into something fancy enough for company. Try ordering restaurant stroganoff today for under $20. You cannot. Number 26, Rice-A-Roni beef skillet. When Rice-A-Roni launched in San Francisco in 1958, mothers immediately figured out you could brown 1 pound of hamburger right in the skillet. Then pour the rice mix and water right on top. 15 minutes later, dinner. Add a can of green beans, and you covered your vegetables too. The toasted vermicelli soaked up every drop of beef fat and turned golden. The rice absorbed the meat juices. It was the original one-pan meal, and it cost about 40 cents to feed 4 people. Modern meal kit companies charge $12 for the same concept in a cardboard box. Entries 25 to 21. Number 25. Stovetop Tater Tot. Skillet. Before the tater tot casserole became a Minnesota church basement icon, farm wives made the stovetop version in one pan. Brown 1 pound of ground beef with onion. Stir in a can of cream of mushroom soup and a can of green beans. Scatter frozen tater tots across the top and cover with a lid. The steam from the soup cooked the tots from the bottom, while the skillet crisped them from below. 12 minutes. 1 pan. No oven heating up the kitchen in July, and a bag of Ore-Ida cost 39 cents and made 2 dinners. This was survival cooking dressed up as comfort food, and it worked every single time. Number 24. Taco Skillet Supper. Before a dinner kit company sold you a box for $6, your mom made taco night for under $1. Brown a pound of ground beef. Stir in a packet of taco seasoning, which cost a dime in 1967, and pile it onto warm corn tortillas with shredded iceberg lettuce, diced tomato, and a handful of grated cheese. The whole thing took 14 minutes from the moment the skillet hit the burner. Taco Bell was not even founded yet. American mothers were already doing it faster and cheaper than any drive-thru will ever manage. Number 23. Cheeseburger Macaroni. Hamburger Helper launched in 1971, specifically to sell you the box version of what your grandmother had been making for 20 years. Brown a pound of beef. Pour in 2 cups of milk, 1½ cups of elbow macaroni, a tablespoon of ketchup, a teaspoon of mustard, and a handful of shredded cheddar. Cover the skillet. Simmer 12 minutes. The pasta cooked right in the sauce. General Mills made a fortune convincing us this required a dry seasoning packet from a cardboard box. It required 6 ingredients you already had in the house and 15 minutes of attention. Number 22. Poor man's stew. This was not a real stew. It was the 15-minute skillet version your grandmother made when payday was still 3 days away. Brown a pound of ground beef with chopped onion. So add a can of diced potatoes, a can of mixed vegetables, a can of tomato soup, and a splash of Worcestershire sauce. Simmer 10 minutes. Done. It tasted like something that had been cooking all afternoon, because the canned potatoes were already soft, and the tomato soup thickened on contact with hot beef fat. Total cost, in 1959, about 60 cents. Total time, 15 minutes. Total complaints from hungry children, 0. Number 21. Beef and cabbage skillet. Every Polish grandmother in Chicago and Buffalo made this one when cabbage dropped to 4 cents a head in the fall. Brown 1 pound of ground beef with onion and garlic salt. Stir in half a head of shredded cabbage, a can of tomato sauce, and a handful of uncooked minute rice. Cover for 10 minutes. The cabbage wilted down to almost nothing. The rice plumped up, and you had stuffed cabbage flavor without any of the rolling, stuffing, or simmering. It was called lazy cabbage rolls in a dozen church cookbooks, and it fed a family of 6 for about 75 cents. Fresh, hot, and ready before the kids finished their homework. Entries 20 to 16. Number 20. Quick porcupine meatballs. Traditional porcupine meatballs took an hour in the oven. Your grandmother's skillet version took 15 minutes. Mix 1 pound of ground beef with half a cup of uncooked minute rice, an egg, salt, and pepper. Roll into walnut-sized balls. Drop them into a skillet with a can of tomato soup and a soup can of water. Cover and simmer. The rice grains poked out as they swelled, giving the meatballs their porcupine look. The tomato soup thickened into gravy as the rice released its starch. a Depression-era trick that made 1 pound of meat feel like 2. Served over mashed potatoes for about 50 cents. Number 19. Skillet lasagna. Long before one-pan pasta became a food blog trend, your grandmother was making skillet lasagna in 1964. Brown 1 pound of ground beef. Break 6 lasagna noodles into pieces right into the pan. Pour in a jar of ragu and 2 cups of water. Cover and simmer for 12 minutes. Dollop cottage cheese or ricotta across the top. Scatter mozzarella. Let the lid trap the steam for 2 more minutes. The noodles cooked right in the sauce. The cheese melted from the steam alone. It tasted like baked lasagna, without the oven, without the second pot, and without the 90-minute wait. It fed 8 people for about $1.10. To number 18. Johnny Marzetti. Named for a restaurant owner's brother in Columbus, Ohio, Johnny Marzetti ruled school cafeterias and church suppers from 1945 through the 1970s. Brown 1 pound of ground beef with onions and bell pepper. Stir in a jar of spaghetti sauce and 2 cups of cooked elbow macaroni. Top with shredded cheddar and cover until the cheese melted. 11 minutes. Done. Ohio grandmothers still argue about whether it needs mushrooms or black olives. It was the Midwest's answer to goulash, and it disappeared when frozen lasagna trays hit grocery store shelves for $3. Johnny Marzetti originally cost 60 cents and fed more people. Number 17. Ground beef chop suey. In the 1950s, every Better Homes and Gardens cookbook had a chop suey recipe that had absolutely nothing to do with actual Chinese food. Brown 1 pound of ground beef with a sliced onion and 2 stalks of celery. Add a can of bean sprouts, a can of chicken and rice soup, and 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. Simmer for 8 minutes. Serve over chow mein noodles from a can. It tasted like nothing you would ever find in a Chinese restaurant, but it tasted exactly like Wednesday night in Milwaukee. $1 and change fed 5 people. One major brand sold millions of cans of bean sprouts on the back of this single dish. Number 16. Quick hamburger soup. When your grandmother needed to feed 8 people and had exactly 1 pound of beef in the fridge, this was her answer. Brown the beef with an onion. Pour in 2 cans of beef broth, a can of diced tomatoes, a can of mixed vegetables, and a handful of alphabet pasta. 12 minutes on the stove, and the whole kitchen smelled like a diner. The alphabet noodles were the entire reason children ate it without complaining. Salt, pepper, a bay leaf if you were feeling fancy. 15 cents a bowl in 1961, and nobody left the table hungry. Entries, 15 to 11. Number 15. Homemade beef aroni chef. Boyardee started selling canned beef aroni in 1958. It became a punchline for cheap dinners. But the homemade version your grandmother made was ready in the same 15 minutes and tasted 10 times better. Brown a pound of ground beef. Stir in a can of tomato sauce, a can of tomato soup, a teaspoon of Italian seasoning, and 2 cups of cooked elbow macaroni. Top with Parmesan from the green can. Done. It cost about 40 cents to make and tasted like the canned version's rich older cousin. The brand spent decades advertising to children so they would beg for the can instead of the pan. And it worked.